Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into what I consider to be the ultimate cinematic magic trick. It is a trick that happens right in front of our eyes constantly, and yet we almost never notice it. We're talking about the art of the invisible edit.
Picture this. It's an everyday movie moment, a scene you've literally seen 1,000 times. A character reaches for a door handle. Right as their hand makes contact with the metal, the camera instantly cuts to a completely different angle from inside the room. But somehow, that physical movement continues perfectly, seamlessly, into the next angle.
Take a second and really think about that. Why didn't you notice the cut? The camera just jumped completely through space and time, but your brain totally bypassed the interruption. And that's the core mystery of this illusion, really. Your brain ignores the cut because your attention is so fiercely locked on to the action itself. That is the true magic of editing, and today we're going to figure out exactly how professional editors make those cuts vanish.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the magic of editing, define what continuity actually means, open up the essential editing toolkit, look at some creative match cuts, and finally, learn how to avoid common mistakes.
All right, Section 1, the magic of editing. The best cut is invisible.
Moving on to Section 2, defining continuity. One story, many shots. Okay, so let's pull back the curtain here. What actually is continuity editing? Well, it's the technique of arranging shots so that time, space, and movement feel perfectly continuous. It is all about connection. You could film a scene over several hours or even over a few days using half a dozen different camera setups, but when it's put together, the audience absolutely has to believe it's happening in one single uninterrupted moment. Because really, the ultimate goal here is keeping your audience completely immersed in the narrative spell. You want them focused on the story, the characters, the emotion. The second a viewer starts noticing the cuts, well, you've broken that spell. You've essentially just reminded them that they're sitting on a couch staring at a screen.
Section 3, the essential editing toolkit. The magician's secrets.
To pull off this illusion, editors rely on 4 foundational sleight-of-hand techniques. We've got the match on action, the eyeline match, maintaining screen direction, and matching the timing. Let's see how each of these works in practice. Now, what's genuinely wild about match on action is how it basically hacks our visual perception. You start an action in a wide shot. Then, you make the cut directly in the middle of that physical movement. Finally, the action completes naturally in a close-up. By hiding the cut right in the middle of a motion, like someone opening a door or picking up a book, you force the viewer's brain to track the momentum across the edit. It makes the cut virtually invisible. Next up is the eyeline match. Think of it this way. If a character looks off to their left, the very next shot absolutely has to reveal what they are looking at from the proper angle. Getting those eyelines right is crucial because it helps the audience instantly grasp the spatial relationships in the scene. It anchors us geographically inside the world of the film.
And this leads us perfectly into the 180-degree rule, which dictates screen direction. If a character moves left to right, the next shot needs them continuing left to right. It just flows smoothly. But if you suddenly reverse it, and now they're inexplicably moving right to left, you completely scramble the audience's internal compass. Breaking this rule without a very specific narrative reason guarantees a disoriented, confused viewer.
But good continuity isn't just visual, right? It relies heavily on rhythm. Say a movement begins at 0 seconds in your first shot. At exactly the 2-second mark, you align the cut point perfectly with the action. Then, by 4 seconds, the movement completes in shot 2. Matching the physical speed, the pace of the dialogue, and even the natural length of pauses is what keeps the timeline flowing effortlessly.
Let's jump into Section 4, creative match cuts. Smooth and symbolic transitions.
So unlike your standard invisible cut, a match cut uses visual or thematic similarities to bridge completely different scenes. It's highly stylized. Imagine cutting from a spinning bicycle wheel straight to the bright round sun. That is a visual shape match. Or a thematic match, like a child closing a book, cutting directly to an older version of that exact same character, opening a book years later. Think of that legendary bone to spaceship cut in 2001: A Space Odyssey. It bridges massive gaps in time and space through pure visual poetry.
Okay, Section 5, avoiding common mistakes. The flubbed trick.
You know, it is so easy to accidentally give away the trick. Beginners often end up with these jarring, clunky cuts because they cut right before or after an action happens, breaking the natural momentum, or they just ignore eyelines entirely.
On the flip side, a seamless professional edit happens when you cut exactly on that continuous action. You meticulously match the eye lines, and you keep your screen direction incredibly consistent.
So, when you are reviewing your own work, or maybe just analyzing your favorite movie scene, there is one single, vital question you always have to ask yourself. Just one. Will the audience notice this cut? If the answer is yes, if there's even a slight visual hiccup, a weird pacing change, or just a moment of confusion, you have to go back and adjust the timing. You just keep massaging that edit until it entirely disappears.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful insight to wrap up our breakdown today. Great editors don't cut because they can. They cut because the story needs it. Look, it's super tempting to use every single camera angle you shot, or to show off some flashy transition. But all of this technique, the eye lines, the 180-degree rule, the precise timing, it all ultimately serves one single master, and that's the story. By mastering continuity, an editor is just guiding the audience effortlessly through the emotional landscape of a scene.
When it's done right, viewers remember the emotion, they remember the story, but they absolutely do not remember the cuts. Next time in this Explainer series, we're going to explore editing rhythm and pacing, where we'll figure out how the actual length of each shot heavily influences things like suspense and comedy. But until then, I want to leave you with this. What is one movie scene where a glaringly bad edit completely ruined the illusion for you? And knowing what you know now, how would you fix it?